You're watching Oilers Nation Everyday with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
The Edmonton Oilers are going to start the season with $53 in cap space. Liam, what would you buy if I gave you $53 right now?
Ham and cheese roll.
Let's get into it with the lead. Welcome into Oilers Nation Everyday, coming to you live from, guess where? The Sports Closet Studio.
Whoa.
That's where we're always at. If you gave me $53, which is how much cap space the Oilers are going to have once they go into LTIR, I would buy this Buffalo Bills hat, which I'd be able to afford after tax. It's, I'll show you.
That looks good.
It's brown.
I thought it was a Bills hat, not a Browns hat.
Anyways, that's what I would buy with $53. That's how much money the Oilers are expected to have. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are they in LTIR space when they don't need to be? Well, lucky for us, Hart Levine, the man who runs Puckpedia, is going to join us in 40-ish minutes, and he's going to explain it all to us. So if you have cap-related questions, send them in, and we'll get them to Hart.
Yeah.
If you've ever wondered anything about the way the salary cap works, Hart can answer your questions, and Liam and I can't.
Yeah, that's true. Can play the role, but not very good at it.
Mm-hmm. Correct. We do guess a lot.
Yeah, and that's what people want, us to guess, not give them. Can you just click X in the top left corner?
Oh, is that really distracting on our monitor?
Yeah,
Sorry. Anyways, Hart's coming up in a bit. We're also going to be joined by a new friend, Andy MacNeil.
Ooh.
He's the host of the Puck Portfolio, which is going to be a new sort of stats betting show that we're doing on Daily Faceoff 3 days a week. And here's the cool thing about Andy. He comes to us from Canadian Sports Betting, which is in our ecosystem because we're owned by Better Collective now. Shout out to BC. But he actually lives in Edmonton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know, I was thinking about Edmonton yesterday.
Can't imagine why you would be.
I was driving to my co-ed game.
Yeah.
What's the place called next to Commonwealth?
Clarkfield.
That community center. And do you remember when Evander Kane was sat in this room somewhere in here?
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, Edmonton Falls are amazing.
He did say that.
And I was driving across the bridge on the Wayne Gretzky, and I was looking at the city. I was like, damn, that looks pretty nice.
I drive down River Valley Road twice a day.
Oh,
and it is beautiful.
Yeah. Nice time of year.
My favorite part is when you come just around the final bend of Grote Road and you can see it's like the U of A is a little bit in the backdrop and the leaves are perfect right now. It's gorgeous. I love Edmonton in the fall.
Yeah, it is nice.
I'm trying to get one more round of golf in on Monday, I think.
I was going to say, you should mix that in. It's a bit, I should Thanksgiving weekend, obviously, so no show Monday. But of course, we always have back-to-back games and we all still have to work it anyway. Be engaged in it.
Yeah, that's life. All right. Again, Andy's going to join us in a bit. Hart from Puckpedia in a little bit as well. So a couple of guests today as we continue to get ready for the season. But I want to get to a couple of comments here. Sasky Oil fan, I need answers. I'm not sold that this offseason was a great offseason. Well, I don't think the Oilers, and here's where I'll give you some hope. The Oilers lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. They didn't need to have a great offseason. This is not a roster that is overly flawed.
Yeah.
Like, again, do they have a legitimate number one goalie? Yes, that is Stuart Skinner. Do they have a legitimate top pairing on defense? Yes. Ekholm and Bouchard are one of the best pairings in the NHL. Do they have two quality centermen? Well, their 1-2 punch down the middle is better than any 1-2 punch in the NHL. And what did they do? They surrounded those two centermen with more talent than they've arguably ever had. I think Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson, from a proven NHL goal scorer and proven NHL top six winger perspective, give the Oilers the best top six they've had in the McDavid era. And if everything goes to plan, and that's Jeff Skinner scores 30 plus goals and Victor Arvidsson is, like I look at him like Draisaitl and Yamamoto worked well, but Kyler Yamamoto's issue was that he didn't have top six skill.
Yeah.
Victor Arvidsson can do all the things that we loved about Yamo: forecheck, force turnovers, be a pain in the other team's ass, even for a little guy, a wee lad. But Victor Arvidsson can score 30 at a 30-goal pace. He's just got to stay healthy. So I think if you're sitting here going, I'm not sure if it was a great offseason because you're looking at maybe a Nashville who added Shea and Stamkos and Marchessault, and you're looking at all these other things. I would sit there and say it wasn't a great offseason because the Oilers didn't need to have a great offseason. And if you want to look at the team that beat them in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final last year in the offseason they had, Florida lost Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who was one of their better defensemen in the playoffs and in the regular season. He ate a ton of minutes for them. They lost Brandon Montour, who was a legitimate top 4 defenseman. They didn't replace them at all.
Their blue line's weak.
Their blue line is bad. Like Gustav Forsling is good. Aaron Ekblad gets hurt once a year. But even if you look at those two and say Ekblad's going to be healthy, that's your top pairing, sure. Mikola Kulikov as a second pairing is awful.
Yeah, I like Mikola. Kulikov's not what he once was, if he ever was.
Are you familiar with Uvis Balinskis?
Only because I watched DFL Live this morning.
Well, he's playing. He's playing in the Florida Panthers top 6.
Who is this young man? I'm gonna guess he's Latvian.
I honestly have no idea who he is.
Where do you think he's from? Latvia is the best guess.
Yeah, Denmark maybe. That's not really much of a Danish name.
He is Latvian.
Okay.
28 years old.
28. How old?
28. Left shot. 96 born. Undrafted. Played 26 games for the Panthers last year. 3 points, 1 goal. Spent most of his time in Charlotte. Prior to that, was playing in the Czech League. Hasn't been in the KHL since Riga Dynamo existed. I think they're done now. I don't think they're in there.
They found him at the uranium plant over the summer and were like, son of a bitch, this guy's big. He could play hockey. He's played 24 NHL games. That's bad. Adam Boquist is their other defenseman. If you remember him, wasn't good enough to be on the Blue Jackets last year.
Was involved in that big Seth Jones trade. He was kind of the young piece that went over to Columbus. But so, yeah, tough one.
Sasky, to answer your question, the Oilers didn't have a 10 out of 10 offseason, but they had a very good offseason. And for a team who is now going and do whatever year you want to call it of being a Stanley Cup contender, being able to add to your roster should be considered a massive victory. And the Oilers added. They got better. And you can sit there and be like, they lost Ceci, they lost Desharnais. They lost 2 replacement level defensemen. And they replaced him with a guy who has upside in Emberson. So I have zero problems with what the Oilers did this offseason.
Breaking news. Raphael Lavoie back on waivers.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get Raph Lavoie back. And so here's the interesting part about Raph Lavoie now. We'll get clarification from Hart Levine from Buckpedia. But
can't afford him.
I believe if the Oilers are the only team to put a claim on him, they can send him down to Bakersfield.
I think that is right because do you remember that one guy? Toronto did this, didn't they?
Yeah. Adam Brooks.
Adam Brody. Don't get mistaken. But yeah, Lavoie would be nice to get back. And Bob Stoffer, I saw some tweets about this yesterday. So
we always credit Bob whenever we can because we love him.
Although he did take his noon slot.
Friendly competition, right, Bob?
He said yesterday that the Vegas Golden Knights they wanted both, but weren't expecting to get both Lavoie and Schmidt. So they didn't have enough roster spaces to keep both and had to send one down anyway.
It's kind of like the age-old problem of asking 2 girls to the prom and they both say yes.
Yeah. It's
rarely ever ends in a 3-way.
The goal was less horny.
How do we keep coming to the Cole Schmidt segment? This happens. Also,
we're so back.
It feels good to be back, boys.
I just want to call out Elliot Friedman for something that is quite frankly disastrous. Atrocious.
Okay, where are we going? I don't know what we're talking about.
Stop putting VCR when you're talking about the Vancouver Canucks.
But he does this on purpose.
They are the VAN, Van.
Vicar.
When he put VCR, I thought he was talking about Vegas the other day, just at a glance. It doesn't make sense. It's dumb.
Vegas is LV.
And that is fine. Although it should just be, I don't know what it should be. LV seems normal, but
yeah.
LVG, I guess. I don't know. But that seems silly. Also, he put himself
on. It's not a real team. That's VCR.
Why? Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet Vancouver.
So the point of this is that Raph Lavoie could very well be back in the Oilers organization by this time tomorrow.
I hope so.
And considering where Vegas would be on the waiver priority and how many bottom feeder teams would have passed on Lavoie the first time around, I actually would say the odds are pretty good that Raf Lavoie is back in the Oilers organization.
So here's a question. When they go on waivers, obviously when the season starts, the waivers change based off standings. And I know we said it the other day, it is based off last season currently. But since there's games already happened in games today, does that mean Buffalo is the number 1 and like the Devils are 32? You know what I mean? Because the game's all played, does that not kick into like a certain point?
No, I think it's I think the waiver priority stays similar for a certain amount of time.
Gotcha.
Ask Hart. Maybe he'd know.
Yeah, we're really racking up the questions for our boy Hart Levine. Oilers are expected to sign Travis Dermott to a 2-way contract once the season begins. They also yesterday signed Cameron Wright to an NHL contract. You heard it here first. What did we say yesterday on the show? Let's rewind.
I feel like we already did. We already talked about Lavoie and waivers.
Yeah, we did. But yesterday we said Cameron Wright's a guy who's going to get an NHL contract at some point. And sure as shit, Cameron Wright got an NHL contract.
Yeah, good for him. He's I know Bruce Kurlock is high on him, and I think he came out of the University of Denver, if I'm not mistaken. He was an NCAA signing that the Oilers got. Denver, featuring Bowling Green. Done well. Credit to him. 64 games in the ECHL when he came out of Denver.
Crazy.
It's 29 goals, made his way through. 12 goals last season.
Yeah.
Bakersfield, good for him.
California Oilers fan is in. Why would Vegas claim then waive? We just explained it, but we'll say it again. Vegas did not think they were going to get both Lavoie and Schwint. They wanted one of them. They can't afford both of them. They are picking Schwint over Lavoie and putting Lavoie back on waivers. So
you know what is extremely interesting about this? And let me just double check on Schwint. So Schwint is also a right shot, similar to Lavoie.
Mm-hmm.
Only difference really in the kind of outside of stats is Lavoie is 1 year older than him.
Yeah.
Schwint is an April baby.
Beanie,
But,
it's until November 1st for waiver order. Then the standings start to impact it.
Thank you, Beanie. Schmidt only scored 14 goals in the American League last season. Still good number.
Lavoie scored 25?
28.
28.
Doubled him.
Wow.
And
Mamma mia.
Vegas Golden Knights didn't want to keep him. Now, I'm a fan of Lavoie.
Me too.
But it's just another example of like, we do overestimate these guys as well.
Mm-hmm. We do.
And yeah, Neil, he's a center. Still.
It will be very funny after all the overreactions yesterday if Lavoie's just on the Condors tomorrow.
Yeah.
It would be weird if the Oilers don't put a claim in. Like, there's no way they don't.
They have to.
It would make very little sense.
Yeah. They must, we kind of joked on the outside. We actually brought this up before the show.
Yeah.
Doing prep. And
we do prep.
Yeah, talking about how should the Oilers just send in like a 7th round pick just to get him back? But also the Oilers must feel very confident again. If, like you said, if it made it all the way to Vegas in the standings, that they can probably just get him back.
Yeah. The Oilers are get him back. He would auto clear if the Oilers put a claim in, right? From mistaken Mexican. Can they claim him from Brian? So I believe the way it works, and we'll get clarification from our pal Hart later. If they're the only team that puts a claim in, they can put him down in Bakersfield. I have a funny feeling that's exactly what's going to play out here. Jeff Skinner back in the top 6 for the Edmonton Oilers. Wanted to quickly get to that. So it seems like it was a one-day message. We speculated on this yesterday that this might just be Knobloch going, hey, come on, you got to be better. Pick it up. And message received, I would assume, by Skinner. He's back with Draisaitl and Arvidsson, so all is right in the world there. Third line is back together. I never really got the sense that they would break up that third line. And also, the preseason stunk. No one cares about it. Players, I think, at times are mildly disinterested, especially when your roster spot is locked up. So I want to see Jeff Skinner play the first 5 to 10 games of the regular season with Leon Draisaitl and see if they can develop some chemistry here now that the games matter.
Yeah, they need to be given some time to adjust to each other and get things going. Feet touched.
Our feet touched.
And I think that Jeff Skinner is obviously a top player. He should be able to, he's more than capable of playing with Draisaitl. And we like Yaremchuk, but he's not good enough to play next to Leon Draisaitl, and the Oilers shouldn't try and force that upon him.
Correct.
Upon Draisaitl to make it work, I guess you could say. So, yeah, I think it's good.
Couple of things to get to here one thing to get to, and then it's going to tie in to our first guest of the day, which is Andy MacNeil. But I want to talk quickly about our Sherwood Ford Giant question for the day. Looking for a newer used vehicle with cutting-edge technology and top safety features? Whoa. Sherwood Ford has you covered. Explore the amazing driver assistance features and intuitive infotainment systems available from their giant inventory. Their knowledgeable and friendly team will explain everything you need to know to feel confident and connected behind the wheel. Okay. Your giant question. The sports books are saying the Oilers are Stanley Cup favorites. Sportsnet put out their kind of poll of all of their staff. 90% of them picked the Edmonton Oilers. Your question, are you nervous about how many people are picking the Oilers to win the Cup? Frank picked the Oilers to win the Cup. Like, again, the strong majority of people you talk to go, the Oilers are my Stanley Cup favorites. I'm picking the Oilers to win the Cup. And quite honestly, the team that is in that position, the pole position to begin the year, they rarely ever win the Stanley Cup. So are you nervous about that?
Yeah, I've kind of had these thoughts in my head for a while too. Of just, does it matter? I don't know. I mean, shouldn't they be? Like, they should be everybody's favorites to win the Cup. They have a great team. We just kind of spoke about their offseason. They have the two of the top 5 best players in the world. I don't know. I don't believe in many of those teams, to be honest, to win the Stanley Cup. Like, Colorado probably shouldn't be as high as they are. Vancouver. Like, who are the legit Cup contenders in there? The Oilers. I don't think the Panthers are, but I don't want to write them off.
Dallas is a wagon still.
Yeah,
Colorado could be there. I think if Nichushkin's back and is dialed.
Question marks though.
Landeskog and Georgiev.
Carolina.
Yeah, I'm
not as good.
Yeah.
The Rangers probably.
Yes.
So of that list, you're probably looking at 3, let's say 4 teams, and we'll say Florida. So no, I wouldn't say I'm actually that concerned about it when you go through the process of like, who are even the Cup contenders?
You know who we should ask that question to?
Yes.
Andy MacNeil.
All right.
Let's get out to the Star Mechanical guest line. It's Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. You can find out more about them online at starmechanical.ca. It's a double dip today on the Star Mechanical guest line as well. But first up is Andy MacNeil, who is the host of the Puck Portfolio Show, which is coming to Daily Faceoff this year. And Andy, I like that you threw on the Oilers lid as well to do this hit. Very on brand.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what show we were doing. I thought I was going to be on a DFO show, so I did have the Boston Bruins hat ready, but I made the switch last minute.
Yeah, you were an Edmonton guy as well, so you're not necessarily an Oilers fan, though, correct?
I mean, I married into an Oilers family, so I kind of have to jump on the bandwagon, and I was definitely maybe not as hurt as you guys were, but I definitely felt it last year. I was riding that cup run the whole way, and I watched my little fella shed some tears when they lost Game 7. So yeah, I'm an Oilers fan. I want to see my son happy and my family happy, of course.
I like that. So you work in the, again, predictions and what's the word I'm looking for? The other P word, Liam, projection business. And you do a ton of great work. We're excited to have you doing your show on Daily Faceoff this year, but maybe we'll just pick up the conversation Liam and I were just having of how many true Cup contenders are there? Like, if you had to pick an inner circle of like, these teams actually have a good shot as they're built right now, how many teams would be in that inner circle and who would they be?
Well, first of all, I think you guys nailed it on the head there, just talking about the Oilers. And I mean, there's, really no reason they shouldn't be the Stanley Cup favorite heading into this season. And as far as being nervous about Edmonton's chances, I mean, the reason that the favorite doesn't win or seems not to win every other year, it's that, like even at 7-1, the odds that Edmonton is currently sitting at right now, that only implies a 12.5% chance. That means that almost 90% of the time, somebody else wins the Stanley Cup, right? So being the favorite doesn't necessarily mean an increased probability. I know some people, it'll vary. You'll have some people that say the Oilers have, as much of as a 20% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. I've got them at 11%, and they're the only team that I have with a better than 10% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. I've got a couple of more in the 9% range. You talked about the Dallas Stars. I agree. They're a wagon. I think they're the second best team in the Western Conference after Edmonton. And the Rangers, who, I mean, New Jersey's going to get a lot of attention heading into this season, but New York put up 114 points last season, 107 the year before that, 113 the year before that. I mean, they're the real deal, and they might not have the strongest underlying metrics, but they got a great goaltender, and they put up 100 points in their sleep. So I still think they're a Stanley Cup contender as well. But yeah, some of the there are a handful of teams, but I think like last year, it's pretty wide open, and realistically, any of the 16 teams that make the playoffs could potentially make a run.
Which is always the dangerous part about betting on the NHL and betting on a Stanley Cup futures bet this far out. Like, we got a comment in here from our boy Chili, who is down in Texas, and he says perhaps a better conversation for after the deadline. And I think I kind of agree with that. You never know when a key injury is going to roll in and things like that. But I guess as you went through your projection process before the season, is there one team that you think the public maybe isn't high enough on, that you think, whether it's a bet to make the playoffs, maybe not necessarily a bet to win the Stanley Cup, but a team that's undervalued? They're like, man, come December, come the deadline, we will be talking about them totally different.
I think, just like looking at the league, a general overview, I think most people can agree that the gap between the best teams and the worst teams probably not going to be as wide this season. We don't have Connor Bedard, MacNeil, Celebrini to incentivize tanking, and there aren't really any obvious signs of a tank heading into this season. So I think that's the big thing coming into 2024-25. But after doing all my homework this offseason, I came away feeling like the class of the league really has remained the same, and that there aren't really any fringe playoff teams that have done enough, outside of maybe the Ottawa Senators, who have kind of inched closer to getting back in the mix, that have put themselves in a position where they should be, counted on to make the playoffs more often than they're going to miss. I mean, I look at even at the Minnesota Wild. I think they're a team that's being kind of overvalued right now. They're plus 120 to miss the playoffs, and I don't see any reason why they should be given the benefit of the doubt as a team that should make the playoffs more often than not. They're minus 150 to make the playoffs. So that's a bet that on a team that I like to miss the playoffs. But, over the last several years, one thing that has really changed in the NHL betting market is that futures odds get released earlier and earlier. We used to see these things, 5 years ago come out in late August. Now they're coming out in late, early July, and the markets are very mature. People are betting on these things all summer long. So, even a team like the Nashville Predators, who maybe opened up a little bit shorter in some areas, like to win the division and things like that, those numbers have been adjusted because of all the moves they made in the offseason and all the hype that's come along with it.
Yeah, and the Predators are a team who had a very, very busy offseason. Stamkos, Marchus, O'Shea. Where do you rank them in the Central Division? Because, like we said, Dallas is a wagon, but after that, I think there are question marks about a Winnipeg. I think Colorado comes with some question marks too, as we said.
Yeah.
Where do you have Nashville in that group?
Yeah, so for me, first of all, Dallas is the best team in the Central Division. I think, kind of the same thing with the New York Rangers. They're a 100-point team year in, year out the last couple of years. And I think you look at the offense, it was great last season. Not very top heavy either. They had, 40%, or 4 players did 40% of their scoring. The rest of the team carried the rest of the load. You compare that to a team like Toronto, who had 4 players do 55% of their scoring. So Dallas, not a very top heavy team. I think they're going to be really balanced in the scoring department again this season. They've got great defense if you kind of ignore the bottom pairing, I guess. Great goaltending, obviously, Jake Ottinger, although Stuart Skinner kind of, showed him up in the playoffs. But Ottinger, he's the big thing. And I think that puts them ahead of the Colorado Avalanche, who are still, I think, a 100-point team. I think the Predators are a 100-point team as well. The Jets, I have finishing at 99 points this season, which is higher than their regular season points total, down at 95.5 points. So the betting market actually looking for this team to take a big step back compared to last year's 110-point finish. So I think the Jets are a team that you kind of got to look at to take a step back. But since Connor Hellebuck has been the full-time starter for that team, they've only missed the playoffs 1 year. So I still think they are a playoff team, even if it is a wild card spot.
I've been looking at a lot of the player props for the NHL this last couple of days, and the rookie class this year, I think, is very intriguing. Obviously, guys like Celebrini, Michkov, even like Katagoche. But when you go back and look, like, these rookies actually don't score a ton of points. It's like 1 or 2 guys who really get over 50. Like last year, there was only 1 rookie who got more than 50 points, and it was Bedard. what are your expectations for Celebrini and Michkov? Because right now I'm thinking Celebrini gets 60 plus and Michkov gets over 50. That's where I'm looking right now.
Well, you'd be going over on both their totals
Yeah.
because last I looked, I believe Mitchkoff was around 48 and a half points, 23 and a half goals. I think Celebrini was closer to 25 and a half goals and 52 and a half points. So, I kind of looked at it earlier in the season, really couldn't see a reason to go over on either of those players. I think, I like to put myself, especially with player props, into a position where I'm kind of betting against human achievement because there's so much that can go wrong, injuries, etc., demotions, whatever. We all know how volatile John Tortorella is, so that could come into play at some point this season with Matvei Michkov. But as far as the expectations go, yeah, you're right. I mean, not a lot of rookies do score the kind of points, and if you look at the totals of all these player props concerning the rookies, I mean, they all are around 20 and a half, 21 and a half. In that 40-point range, and they're not all going to get there. So there's definitely some value on the board. As far as which ones, I'm not quite sure. The rookies, like everybody else, kind of confuse me a little bit. I mean, I look more towards the sophomore and the third year guys, maybe to find some player props. Like Dylan Gunther is a guy that I love in the player prop market. He was sitting at 55 and a half points. And I think he's going to clear 60 pretty easily. I also like him to score 30 plus goals this season. So those are the kind of players that I look at as far as maybe the lesser known players.
Well, there was actually one sophomore I wanted to ask you about too. Adam Fantilli. I feel like that's a guy, obviously, a lot has happened in Columbus this year, and the offense is lacking now, and Fantilli can really take that step and become that guy.
Well, and sometimes people look at, and Columbus again is projected to be a relatively bad team this year, but they look at those bad teams and go like, oh, well, he's on a bad team. How many points can he put up? But like
someone has to.
Someone has to play on the power play. Someone has to play top 6 minutes. Like Fantilli, actually, his numbers last year weren't bad. I don't hate that. Like, is there maybe something to be said about targeting some of these guys who are on quote unquote bad teams?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Fantilli's a guy that I've had a lot of people reach out to me about him over the summer, looking at his player props, looking at him in futures markets, like I talked about, to score 30 or 40 plus goals. There are some big numbers out there when it comes to that player. But I guess the one thing I would say is shop around, because depending, like in this day and age, with how easy it is to sign up for an online sports book, there's no reason to not be price shopping, right? Obviously, there's some great sports books available to Canadians right now, and I've seen differences of 6-1 on Fantilli to score a particular number of goals compared to like 10-1 at another sports book. So you can almost double your potential profit, right? So that'd be the biggest piece of advice with a player like that.
Interesting stuff. Boone Jenner's unders. We're all on those. If you could still find them up, because he's expected to be out for a bit, but books aren't taking him down yet.
No,
so there's something there, because he might be out to like Christmas. All right, give us just again from your projection kind of work, and again, really excited to see your show coming up on DFO over the next couple of weeks here as the season gets going. But give us your kind of boldest take. What's one thing that as you were doing your research, you maybe started to believe in more and more, or like one thing that kind of really made you raise your eyebrows and you're like, you know what, damn, this might actually happen?
Yeah, well, I don't know how bold any of my takes are. I mean, I like some of the division winners that are pretty obvious. We talked about Edmonton. You can bet Edmonton to win the Pacific Division at plus 110, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I have them winning the division 69% of the time. Both myself and the rest of the betting market think that there's no bigger gap in any division than between the Oilers and the rest of the teams. So they've got a really good chance of doing that. Montreal, I mean, Patrick Laine, he's had his, he's got his doubters, and it sucks that he's out 2 to 3 months. And I think that hurts the Canadians. I mean, you look at the betting market before his injury, they had him listed at 29 and a half goals. So a potential 30 goal scorer, you never want to lose a player like that. But even before the acquisition of Laine, I thought this Habs roster had what it takes to, go over their total from last year, which was 76 points. And the betting market is listing them at 76 and a half, 77 and a half points heading into this season, which I think is wrong. I mean, they dealt with a lot of injuries last season. Their core is another year older. They've got a great goaltending tandem. A little bit of uncertainty there with Jake Allen out of the picture now, but they've got 2 really good young goaltenders. I think they're an 80 plus point team. with or without Patrick Laine, depending on when he gets back and how impactful he is when he does get back. I think they could be a real surprise for people this season. I don't think they're a playoff team by any means, but I do think they'll shock people with how good they can be. But I guess the boldest bet that I'm making as far as my favorite futures bets, the Boston Bruins to win the Atlantic Division, 5-1. You can find that at One Canadian Sportsbook. They're plus 450 at a lot of sports books or worse. But I think, the Jeremy Swayman signing, it makes it a lot easier to predict that they're going to be a 100-point team again, just as they've been in 6 of the last 7 seasons, excluding the 2020-21 campaign. But I think I'm pretty intrigued with what they did in the offseason, bringing in Elias Lindholm and to a lesser extent Nikita Zadorov. But they've got a great defense and obviously a superstar in David Pastrnak. And now a great goaltender locked up. So I think Toronto, nobody really knows what to make of them. A lot of people are picking them to win the Atlantic Division. They haven't done so since the Atlantic Division became a thing, though. And the Florida Panthers are probably going to be suffering from a bit of a hangover. So maybe I'm underestimating the Lightning a little bit. They're kind of sitting there at 5-1 as well. But I think the Bruins have what it takes to win the division again.
Yeah, I really do think they're a team that's maybe getting overlooked just a hair, especially now that the Swayman thing is there. Andy, appreciate your time. Last thing I wanted to hit on, we like talking to our guests about their setups and their backdrops. So you got the green screen over one shoulder, and then on the other side, are those real jerseys or is that a part of the green screen?
No, they're real jerseys. Yeah, I got some. I'll just hide this one back here. See the Flames jersey.
Okay, and then the brick wall, real bricks or fake bricks?
Fake bricks. It's fake bricks. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We have real bricks. So
I painted them so they wouldn't look as fake.
Andy, appreciate your time, man. Look forward to doing this a few more times throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, there you go. That's Andy MacNeil. Find him on Twitter at Digital Gambler. Good Edmonton guy and host of the Puck Portfolio, which is coming on Daily Faceoff this year. Another good show added to the stable over at DFO. Let's get to some conversation in the YouTube chat. Robbie is in. Why is our asset management so weird? Well, we might be also profile picture being Bison King is hilarious. But we might be getting Ralph Lavoie back. It's all good. It's all good.
Actually, we'll wait. I was going to say, should we talk about the moves they made yesterday, but we should just talk to Hart about it.
Yeah, we'll talk to Hart about that in a little bit. Derek Van Diest of Post Media is saying, sounds like the Oilers will be picking Ralph Lavoie back up off waivers. So he might have a source within the organization that is giving him that. Original Posar with a bit of a clarification on this too. He said, to be clear, the Oilers do not have a right of first refusal. The same claim order is at play. He adds, he presumes the Oilers will claim. And if they're the only claiming team, which again is likely, he would go straight to Bakersfield. Or the Oilers have the option, I should say, to send him straight to Bakersfield. So remember, it's based off the end of last year's standings.
Yes.
And it stays that way until November. So Vegas was 14th on that list. So that means in Lavoie's first time through waivers, go through any bottom feeder, they passed on him. Someone earlier said the Flames are going to pick him up. And unless they're that upset that they lost Cole Schwindt, maybe, but also any team that claims him has to keep him on the NHL roster. The Oilers can claim him. And again, if they are the only team, which they were, 9th in the standings last year, as they probably would be if they do claim him, he can go to Bakersfield. So there you go. That's kind of the math on there.
It doesn't look like, and I know never mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to try and find the contracts, but I looked at the wrong thing.
I was going to leave this, but again, I'll talk about it because whatever, people upset that we did a betting segment there. I know we talk about the odds, but I viewed that more as like an NHL preview in the sense of like Boston to win the division. I think that is an interesting conversation to have. I wasn't coming at that from a lens of like, you guys should do this and make a ton of money, but Andy does a lot of, and I read through his models, he does a lot of data-driven research into this. And that's why he's an interesting guy. That's why we're happy to have him on board. Like, we're not trying to jam betting down your throat 24/7 on the show. We've never done that. We do one segment at the end of the show, and we like talking about it casually because we like it. But anyways, I just roll my eyes a little bit with people who always seem to have an issue with it. Whereas, I mean, we're going to sit here and do a beer ad right away. Like, I mean, no one, and no one's getting, there's not going to be one comment in there about alcoholism ruining
And
families.
Andy is like such an educated source.
I know.
With so much knowledge behind him. It's just because you're looking at it through the lens of gambling. That's good knowledge right there.
Yeah. If you have a problem with it, capitalism. That's where your problem lies. No, we don't want to go there either. All right.
I did want to ask you a betting question.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Ask me a betting question.
Sam Reinhart, 50 plus goals this year.
Liam, I have all your questions here.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay,
gambling a
so
little bit.
yeah, I mean, again, I'm not betting any of this. I'm
No.
talking about this as talking about player projections this year.
Yeah,
Um,
not Griffin.
yeah, so
Sam.
I don't think Griffin's potting 50 anywhere unless he's in a men's league. But I think Sam Reinhart could be due for that's another reason why I don't love Florida. I don't think Sam Reinhart's going to get 57, 58 goals again.
What do you think that number is, though?
What's his over under? Or what do you think?
So I don't do over unders. I just get milestones.
Yeah, you like the milestones, which is fair.
There's a bit more value. 50 plus goals.
I'll say it's like plus 180.
Plus 700.
That's interesting. Because I mean, he did do it last year and he's still going to be playing with Barkov. So
Yeah, so that was kind of the big one I was looking at. We obviously spoke about the other ones, but yeah, interesting.
yeah. Eric, hockey is pretty weird. It's a quote family sport. Youth, kids, beers, betting. Hey, we made a three-way joke like 25 minutes ago, man. We are not we never pretend to be anything less than PG-13.
Whatever. If you guys don't like it, you should go to England. Next to the corner shop, there's a Buc-ee's and then there's a pub. I don't know. Who you want? What else we got? Oh, I got my predictions. Do you want me to do that?
Okay, so Liam did an article the other day, and I do actually
Today.
really want to get in this today.
Yeah.
And you did one prediction for every team in the Pacific Division.
Yes, I did. And it was some of them were a little easier than others. Like
Okay.
McDavid, for the Oilers, I said when McDavid was going to score his goal, score his 1,000th point.
So-
sorry, went with Detroit.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to go through every team. I'm going to hear your prediction, then I'm going to give you a percent chance that I believe it comes true.
Okay.
Start at the top from last year, Vancouver.
I said the Vancouver Canucks will take a slight step back and finish fourth in the division. I think a lot of these teams, and I think the Devils are a half decent example of it. Like sometimes injuries come into play, and it's already happening with Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like Demko's out. I don't think their blue lines is obviously top heavy, and it's similar with the Oilers too. But the Oilers have the star players,
Yeah.
unlike Vancouver. So I said Vancouver finished fourth in the division.
I'll give that, I'll say 50%. I
Okay.
do think there's a, ooh,
Playoff team, by the way.
Fourth in the division?
Yeah.
No, okay, I'm going lower than that. I'm going 15% chance.
Okay.
I think I think they're more likely than not going to be second or third. I think fourth is a hair too far because I think LA might miss the playoffs. So I'm going to go down to 15% on that one. LA.
LA was second. Oh, I already did my Oilers.
You did.
one.
Oilers. Yeah, we did.
I said the LA Kings will make the playoffs in third, win a playoff round against Vegas.
LA will make the division or finish third
Yes.
and win a playoff round.
Because my prediction
Yeah.
is that Quinton Byfield kind of takes that step and becomes a more reliable scorer, and Darcy Kemper, which we spoke about yesterday, can kind of find that consistency again. And I know they don't have Doughty, but I kind of believe in guys like Brant Clark and Jordan Spence. I think they're pretty good players.
I will say there's a 3% chance of both those things happening.
Okay.
Them coming third and winning a playoff round, very low.
I think they can
Vegas.
do it.
We gotta
Vegas,
rip
I
through these
said,
two. But
Jack Eichel finishes with 90 points. So that would mean he has to play at least 75 games.
which has been a trouble.
But Mark Stone had a quote at the end of their series against Dallas last year where he said, we need to focus on the regular season more, and we need to be playing in the regular season more. So I think Vegas is going to actually take it a bit more seriously, which would suggest that Eichel will play at least 75. He's scored 134 points in the last 2 years in 130 games. The problem is he's only played 130 games.
Jack Eichel to go 80 plus points in the regular season is plus 190. 4-1 if you want to get him at 90 plus. So I don't hate that.
He's
I
a
will
great
say
player.
for that one, Eichel 90 plus, I'll say 50-50. I think
right.
there's a chance. I agree. I think Vegas is going to take the regular season a little bit more seriously. Okay, let's quickly go through the bottom feeders now. Calgary.
I said Calgary finishes last in the division.
I'll give it. It's not likely, but I'll say 40% chance.
I just think San Jose and Anaheim somewhat want to win games more than Calgary will. And I think
I agree.
Calgary will ship some guys out and get way worse.
I also agree with that. Seattle.
Seattle, I said, will like they were just a very boring one, middle of the pack.
Your prediction is middle of the pack?
That was basically it. They're the most
100%.
Yeah, the only way they could make the playoffs if a guy like Shane Wright can find that stardom.
Dylan Gunther scores 30 plus.
He's not in the Pacific.
He's not in the Pacific, so he's not in
you're
this.
right.
Anaheim.
They will have a 40 goal scorer.
Cutter Gauthier? Troy Terry?
I said Troy Terry of
Yeah.
Vetrano. The last player to do it was Corey Perry in 2013. But a couple of times, Vetrano and Troy Terry both have 37 goal seasons in the last 3 years. So
the odds of one of them doing it, I think Anaheim's going to be a lot better, but I think some of the youth might eat into some of those minutes, maybe like on the power play and stuff.
Vetrano's on the first line. They're both on the power.
Yeah, okay. I'll say 60%.
Okay.
I think there's more likely than not one of them can break through, and Anaheim has a good season. San Jose, last one.
Now, this is probably my boldest. I think Celebrini is a bit underrated by Canadian hockey fans because he played in the States.
Okay. He doesn't have the same buzz that a Bedard or whatever did.
I think he gets 70 points, which would be close to Matthews at 69. I think he'll get around there for his rookie season. 70 points ish.
Okay. 70 points.
He's going to play with Eklund and Tyler Toffoli.
It's like 20% chance of that happening.
Yeah, I think it's my boldest for sure.
Yeah, it is.
The Kings one is
that would be a very good rookie season for a guy like that.
I think he's good.
Should we continue along with the show?
Let's get along with the show.
Okay. So if you tune into this show, you know Liam and I get a lot of things wrong. A lot of the stuff. Well, I mean, whatever. Let's call it like it is.
What a way to.
A lot of the things we get wrong are related to the salary cap.
Yep.
So we're going to the experts. Star Mechanical Guest Line once again. Double dipping on the guest line. Residential, commercial, 24/7 emergency services. Star Mechanical has you covered. We are bringing in the brains behind puckpedia.com. It is our pal Hart Levine joining us, making his show debut as well. Hart, very much appreciate your time. Thank you. Can he hear us?
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you.
There we go. There was a little lag, but we're good. We're dialed in right now. I have been talking on this show for the last little bit, Hart, about how, the Oilers have an opportunity to accrue cap space throughout the season. And then I see the moves they made the other day, and I'm like, whoa. Why are they starting an LTIR? Because that kills your chance to accrue. Can you explain the logic behind what the Oilers did yesterday with the Wright and Savoy stuff and why they're starting an LTIR?
Sure. I would say they're starting an LTIR, but not really starting an LTIR. So they're capturing their LTIR pool. As you saw, they could sign a player in Wright to a very specific contract that was needed to get a really optimal within $50 LTIR capture. So they're setting their LTIR pool, and then they're kind of putting it aside, and then they're going to operate under the cap, accrue cap space. But this way, if they do need LTIR one day, they have had an almost perfect capture, as opposed to in season, if they have other guys injured, or they obviously wouldn't have the ability to just sign a new player to a very specific contract, they wouldn't be able to get such a close to optimal capture. So there's really no downside in what they did. They basically set their LTIR pool almost perfect for when they need it and put it aside. The only downside is now when they're under the cap, instead of accruing everything under 88 million, they'll be accruing everything under 88 million minus $53. So basically nothing.
So 2.5 beers at the home opener is what they lose in cap space, but I don't mind that. That's a decent little trade-off there. So just to be super clear on this, let's say we get to deadline day and the Oilers have been accruing all year and they have like $4 million in accrued cap space. They can acquire a player and then put Kane on LTIR and have access to basically his whole cap hit to acquire a player?
Yeah, well, basically, Kane will already be on LTIR, right? So once they set him on LTIR, he's an LTIR player. So that means whenever they are going to exceed the cap, now all of a sudden now they're in LTIR and not accruing space. So yeah, they'd probably do it in two steps. Like they accrue all the space as much as they can, do a transaction, use up sort of like the accrued space, and then go back into actually using LTIR, and they could potentially have Kane. But again, if Kane's going to come back during the season, that doesn't really help them because they'd have to clear that space for when he is back. So really, I think this is kind of like an insurance policy, right? It's setting it up in case, first of all, let's just say they get a rash of injuries next month and they need to call guys up. They have a pretty good capture already for LTIR. And then also, let's say he has some setbacks and he's not going to be back during the regular season, then boom, now they have this extra cap space that they can use and go and get it. So I would say this is, setting their LTIR pool and having it kind of, if needed, break glass in case of emergency.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get the gist of this. The last question I have on this whole scenario is the Matt Savoy recall. Is there anything there with like the bonuses and stuff?
Yep.
Like, is there a reason why it was Savoy and not just like Raph Lavoie staying on the roster for another couple days?
Yeah, you nailed it. So when a team goes into LTIR, they have the regular pool, which is like the cap hit, and then there's a performance bonus pool. The way that the performance bonus pool works is, so whoever is on the roster when they go in LTIR, if they have bonuses, that goes in this pool. So then later, if a guy gets called up, if the team doesn't have room in the performance bonus pool for those bonuses, then it starts to chew up cap space. So Savoy has 1 million in performance bonuses. That means that if he was not on the roster when they set LTIR, if he was later going to be added to the roster while in LTIR, he would count an extra $1 million against the cap. Right. So that's why you want him in if he was a player that was never going to be called up this year, it probably wouldn't matter. But because who knows what happens, maybe he'll be called up. You definitely want him and his performance bonuses included when you set LTIR, so that again, now when they send him back down, they'll have this $1 million performance bonus pool. And as long as they call up guys that don't have more than $1 million in bonuses, then it's just going to be the regular cap hit. If they were to call up guys that have more than $1 million in bonuses, then that difference would chew up their cap space. So short answer is yes, it's important to have guys with performance bonuses so that when you call them up, you're not going to chew up regular cap space by calling them up.
Okay.
Got it.
I think I got it too. That makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
You guys with me or was that too much?
No,
that makes sense.
And the chat is with you as well. Christopher Palmer's in. This guy's smart. Goddamn. Brian is in and says cap management is mind boggling. And on the Puckpedia Twitter, you kind of went and laid out everyone's situation with their roster. And I mean, at this point, most of the league has their guys hired and has a process, whatever. And the answer to this might be no, but I'm just curious. Is there any team that as you were sitting there and going through everything, you were like, whoa, they fucked up a little bit? Like, did you catch anything?
I'm not going to say that. No, I mean, I would say I don't let that happen because I start looking at these rosters like a few weeks before, and then I start giving my suggestions to those teams so that they make sure that they know what I think, whether they're interested in my opinion or not, right? So, for example, I put out a piece last week where I was doing this, and I had a really good sense that Washington was going to waive and send down Ethan Bear. Is he an NHL player right now? Who knows? But I could just tell from how they had to set their LTIR with Backstrom that they needed to send a guy with a big cap hit down. So like I had a feeling that that would happen, right? So Montreal, for example, they did a bunch of moves. It took me a little time to unwind how they did it. It's maybe not exactly how I would have done it, but it's pretty close, and it's about the same. So I think that one makes sense. A team like St. Louis, actually, they maybe wouldn't have. That's one team where I probably would have done it a little differently. I would have had a guy like Dvorsky up because, to your point with Savoy, he has bonuses, and it would have let them get a little bit closer to a better capture when they put a guy like Krug or Sundqvist on LTIR. But it is like in a lot of cases we're talking like a few $100,000 or maybe even less. And again, when you're in LTIR, you don't accrue space, so we're talking $200,000. It's 200,000. It's not going to grow, right? So it's more like a game. Like I just tweeted out the LTIR optimization standard or capture standings, and that I know a lot of the cap guys, they really like that. They're competitive, and so they start like giving each other a hard time when I put that out every year, or they'll be asking me yesterday, oh, did I win, right? So it's more like for pride, but it's not really in a lot of sense like what's a few $100 or a few thousand. It's really doesn't come down to that very often. And
it was Toronto who did the best. $1. That is
$1. Cool. Carolina is at $3. So yeah, they're in there. Vancouver last year was at $0, which is the record. But a lot of teams actually, they when I put out, Vancouver won last year was $0, they'll say, we could have made it $0, but we like to give a couple dollars in case there's some rounding issues that we missed. We would never want to, to be $0 just in case. So, again, there's a lot of bragging rights on the line for capologists.
Can you explain just to our listeners and maybe me a little bit too?
You're asking for a friend.
Yeah, it's just for a few friends. How exactly does the accruing work? Like, what is? I do understand it on like the day-to-day thing, but it's way more complicated than just being like the others are going to have like 4 million at the cap, right? At the deadline.
Think of it like this. So the way that the cap works is every day we take a snapshot, and that's what actually counts against the cap. 1 out of 192 days worth of cap hit, right? And so let's say halfway through the season, a team acquired someone with a $4 million cap hit. Well, if you think about it, 4 million at half the days remaining, they're only going to hit the new team for half of that, 2 million, right? So it's really just that basic sort of math of fractions. Like, so the further out you get, when you acquire a player, it's going to use up less of your cap space, right? So we call it accruing cap space, and that's part of it, but it's really about how much a new player will use up of your cap space that you have. So, again, the Oilers, let's say they have $1 million of cap space. Well, that's when I say $1 million of cap space, we show on the website projected cap space. That's as if they made no moves, the season ended, they would finish with 1 million, right? But as time goes on, 1 million of kind of end of season cap space could fit more annual cap at the further we get into the season. So, halfway through the season, if I said the Oilers are projected to end with 1 million of space, well, at 50% of the season, they could add a $2 million guy, right? Because that's going to use up that half. 3/4 of the way through the season, right? They could add a $4 million guy because it's only going to use up 1 million of that space remaining. So I hope that makes sense, but it's basically just you're using fractions or prorating. And if you think about it, the main concept is when a new guy comes to the roster, he's only going to use up his cap hit times the percentage of the season remaining. And if you think of that concept, I think that helps with understanding how the space accrues and builds up.
Yeah,
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that really actually does clear it up. So again, right now on Puckpedia, the Oilers 952,000 in current cap space, projected to 4.3 million in deadline cap space. But let's say, like you said, they run into 3 injuries and have to use their LTIR pool to call guys up for a month. Then that's going to shrink that 4.3 million by a bit. A
lot, yeah. Because again, that the deadline space is taking that final projected cap hit number and multiplying it, by only having that little bit of the season left. But if they call up a guy, a week from now we're going to add almost a whole season's worth of projected space, right? So especially if they have to call up extra guys earlier in the year, that's going to really shrink down the potential deadline space because they would have less days of the season to build up that space. Hope that makes sense. And then when you look at the projected roster for the Oilers right now, that's because Cameron Wright was not officially registered yesterday. If you refresh probably shortly after we finish here, you'll see Wright's added to the roster. They'll have $53 of space. That's when they're going to put Keane to LTIR. And then today, they're not allowed to send anyone down because it's the first official cap day. So I would expect tomorrow then they send Savoy down, they send Wright down, and they sign Dermott. I tweeted out and reported he's going to sign a 2-way deal, it looks like. And so we would expect all those moves tomorrow. So their cap space will look a little different tomorrow. I think it's going to be about $1 million. I pull it up here. It'll be, they'll have about 1.06 million projected space probably tomorrow after those moves.
Okay. We got a couple of questions from the YouTube chat, and then we'll let you go. Trenton says, can you explain the Raff situation since LV just put him back on waivers? So the way to read this is if the Oilers claim him, Hart, they can put him, if they're the only team that puts a claim on him, they can put him right down to Bako, right?
That's the important thing. If they're the only team that puts a claim in, if anyone else puts a claim in, even if the Oilers win the claim, then he cannot go right down. So we saw that with Patera, went from Vancouver to Boston, then Boston put him on waivers, and Vancouver was the only team to put a claim in, so they could send him right down. And let's just clear up a couple misconceptions. The Oilers do not have first dibs. That there's no first dibsies. That doesn't exist. That's like what you do on the playground or something. There's no first dibs, and there's no requirement that you have to keep a claimed player on your roster for a certain number of days. So that's why Vegas could put them on waivers today. Anyone that gets claimed, a team could put them on waivers the next day. There's no requirement to keep them on the roster. The only thing is if you want to send them down, a player must clear waivers. And in the case of like Lavoie, he did not clear. Vegas claimed him. So that's why they have to put him back on waivers again. Then again, the only special thing that Edmonton has is because they were the team that lost him, if they're the only team that puts a claim in, they could send him right down. And if you think about it, that's really just to like not waste time, because if they were the only team that puts a claim in, obviously nobody else wanted him. So why make the poor guy have to go on waivers again tomorrow, have everyone pass on him again, and then send him down, right? So it really is just to make it a little more efficient. It's not even really like that much of a benefit. I guess teams, if they didn't have that rule and then the Oilers claimed him and then put him on waivers again the next day, I guess teams could be a pain and want to mess with them and then put a claim in. But like you already know that these teams have passed a few times. So.
Yeah. And it's based off the end of last year's regular season standings.
For now,
so again, if any team before the Oilers, any team that finished lower than the Oilers in the standings, if they put a claim in, they will get him. If it gets to the Oilers and they put in a claim, which we're led to believe they are going to do, then they will get the player. And as long as none of the 8 teams who finished higher than the Oilers put a claim in, they can put him on Bakersfield, or Edmonton claims them, they get him. And if a Colorado, Boston, Vancouver, Florida, Winnipeg, Carolina, Dallas, or New York also put a claim in, then Edmonton would have to do you're going back on waivers again and probably going to one of those teams.
Yes. Maybe going back to one of those teams, right? Exactly. Yeah.
The St. Louis Blues put in a claim, I'm going to be pissed.
I'm flying to St. Louis and doing something about it is what I'm doing. Danger Swede with the last one we'll throw your way. Does the NHL approve roster movement before they're announced to make sure it's cap compliant? Or do the teams announce and then go double check after? What's that process like? Do you know?
I guess a team can announce whatever they want, but they would look pretty silly if they announced and then it wasn't approved. But when teams submit their official opening roster, that goes through central registry, just like a trade or any contract. It goes through central registry. It gets approved. I'm sure some years there's some back and forth, and there's a lot of intricacies, especially there's things called season opening injured reserve, which has some nuances to it with certain cap hits. The Oilers have that with Yarventi. Robbie Yarventi's actually counting 107,000 against the cap right now while he's injured. They'll clear that once he gets healthy and is sent down. So there's probably some back and forth, but yeah, when the official opening rosters go through, it's already been cleared with central registry. And then basically any move that a team makes has to get cleared with central registry. So like a team can't make a move and then say, whoops, I can't get cap compliant right now. That's a very common question people send me is like, well, what happens if a team is not cap compliant? And the answer is they just cannot be not in compliance with the cap. They cannot make a move that would not put them in cap compliance. That would get rejected. So you can't make a signing, a trade, a call up, anything if it's not going to allow you to be cap compliant.
Okay. All right. I think we're good. I think we're good. You're an Oilers guy. We love hanging out with you during the playoffs down in LA. How high are you on the team this year? And are you like us? We're a little nervous with how many people are picking the Oilers. It's like, that's not always a good thing.
Yeah, they're a little better as a bit of underdogs, right? Well, I think the defense, like it's not an original thought, but the defense is a concern. I mean, I think if they had Broberg, you'd feel a lot better about it, right? Just like a big, strong puck moving guy that has a bunch of upside to grow. So I think this D is going to be a work in progress. And you hear, they'll just add someone at the deadline, sure, but they don't have a lot of assets left, right? Like they have very, very few prospects. They don't have very many draft picks. They don't have a first round pick this year, right? So it's not so easy to add someone, but I think that's an area. And I think the other thing is just to, not to put any bad vibes out there. They've been pretty healthy the last couple of years, right? Like I think, is it 2 years in a row? They basically had no defense injuries, right? Other than like a game here or there. Like that's incredibly rare. And the big guns, I mean, McDavid had a bit of injury last year and then seemed like he played through it. But, that's the thing you never know about is injuries, and that can change a season. So, I mean, I see why everyone's picking them as the cup winner or cup finalist. They were there last year. I think on paper, in some areas they're a little better, like they're top 6. In some areas, like they're D, they're maybe a little worse. I mean, not worse from the regular season, obviously, but maybe worse from how they finished the finals. So you can kind of see the easy analysis as why they're back there. But there's a lot to happen. We saw the first part of last year. The regular season matters, and you can really get yourself in a jam. So. It's not a certainty. And I think when you look at the face-off, the Amazon show, you could see that emotion on the guys' faces, Connor's face especially. Like it's not so easy to get back. You're within, one goal of winning the cup, and now you got to go through a long process just to get that shot again.
Yeah, and then I do worry about a little bit of like, you have to go through this long process. Like I think that can be daunting, or at
Yeah.
times can almost be distracting going through a regular season, being like, come on, get me to the playoffs. Like, let's go. I don't really care about these first 82 all that much. And I'm not implying that they aren't going to try, but their goal and how this Oilers team will be judged is on the 16 to 25 games that will happen after the first 82. And I do wonder.
And I think it would matter if they get, home ice this year, right? Like you saw they had to play game 7 on the road against Vancouver. I'm sure against Florida would have been nice to, be the home team. So I think the regular season does matter. Like look how close they were to winning the Stanley Cup. And, maybe that extra toll it took in the Vancouver series or having to go on the road, the extra trip to Florida, that could make the difference. So I think there is something to really play for. It's not just make the playoffs, but I think, winning the division or finishing with, ahead of most of the Eastern Conference contenders, like I think that really matters.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Hart, appreciate you giving us some time here today. This was very educational. The chat loved you as well. Okay. So that's a big box to check there. And can't wait to be having a Beveragino with you at an Oil game soon.
Can't wait. Thanks, guys. Anytime. Happy to come back. Thanks.
Click on Puckpedia. And then go refresh like 30 times. Just click like 8 different pages. That's what you can do to thank Hart for coming on the show.
Well, I was clicking through.
Yep.
Because one thing I'm looking at, because people keep talking about in the chat, is the Lavoie stuff.
Yeah.
And how Colorado is going to put in a claim for him.
Which also is not coming from a reputable source, so do not believe it.
But even if Colorado did, that would just mean the Oilers can't send him down again. But the Oilers would still have priority over Colorado because the Oilers are ahead of them by 1 spot.
Mm-hmm.
So the teams that you kind of need to be looking out for, assuming he gets past Vegas again, are Tampa Bay, LA, Nashville, and Toronto. Those are the 4 teams in front of Edmonton. Toronto, we can rule out immediately. They have 23.
They don't have the money to do it, so
and they're like $4 million over.
Yeah.
The other 3, I mean, maybe, but I see it's very unlikely.
I think
Tampa just literally put out a tweet of their opening night lineup.
Yeah.
Did they play today?
No.
Last year they played Nashville on the opening day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue moving along with the show today. We want to do a little projection segment. So I want to talk about the 5 power play guys and their projected point totals for next year. And really, I don't think it's going to take us long at all.
No.
But I am just curious if there's any of them who you think they'll go under what their projected point total is. So let's just start with the big guy, the big dog, number 97, Connor McDavid. His projection is 129. I have him going over. We're about to do, by the way, our big projections and predictions episode of Oilersnation Radio. So look for that later on this afternoon. Download that wherever you get your podcast from. But I think Connor McDavid is extremely motivated to get back and show he's a goal scorer again. His goal total fell from 64 to 32 last season. Yeah. I think he's back at 50, and I think his assists are in the 90 to 100 range again. I think we're going to have Connor McDavid at 145 points. I think he's going way over this one.
145. Interesting.
Yeah.
I had him at 137. So I guess not much difference.
He had 132 last year, missed 6 games. Do that math, project. I don't know. Let's call Hart back here and he can do that math. Also, he might rival Bruce Kurlock for smartest guy on the show we've had. There's a 1A, 1B.
They're both up there. Yeah.
I'll say over too. I agree with you. I think McDavid's, it's very different. This last few years, we've seen a different Oilers in many ways. Like last year, they were like, we need to overcome what we weren't able to do against Vegas. They come in early. They have a terrible start to the season. And I feel like they've learned from that. And now it's that year prior when they did lose to Vegas, McDavid's totals, like he had that 18 points in 9 games, first 9 games of the season. So yeah, I think he'll come out guns blazing. Again, I think this forward group is the top 6 is better than it was last year. The bottom 6, I still have question marks over. But who McDavid is going to play with are top players. And yes, I project around 137.
Yeah. Next player we got 110.5 for Leon Draisaitl. Now, this one I think is a bit of a closer number for Leon. When you look, last season he had 106, but the year before that he had 128, and the year before that he had 110. His goal total fell to below 50 for the first time in 2 seasons. And even the year before that, so this would be 4 years ago, he had 84 in a 56 game season. That is a remarkable pace. Year before that, 110 points. I do think, and I know he scored still a lot on the power play, 21 power play goals, but that is fewer than he scored in each of the last 2 seasons. And just from watching with the eyes, he was not as dialed in from his office as he was in years past. He missed some chances. He wasn't himself for stretches of last year. And now he's playing with Skinner and Arvidsson, which is way better than the mishmash of line mates he had to deal with for chunks of last year. I have him, like McDavid, I think is screaming over his. I think Leon's like 114, 115. I do think, maybe a step back in some areas. He did still shoot 18%, which I know is low for him, but still a relatively high shooting percentage. But he's playing with a lot of skill, and I think his one-timer will be back. So I have him at like 54 goals and like 60 assists.
Yeah, I think he'll hit 50 again. The power play should, it's funny to say, like the power play should click more. They were still an elite power play last year, but like Nuge wasn't scoring out as high as the rate as he was the year before too. You mentioned the line mates. I'll say around 120, you guys. I think he'll hit the over. I think just Skinner and Arvidsson are going to be able to get him over.
I think just slightly over.
Yeah. Okay. Who's the third one on our list?
Ryan Zach
Hyman. Okay, so Hyman at 75.5.
One.
He is. So, I mean, remember when Nuge had that monster season a couple of years ago, and then everyone kind of was like, okay, he's going to slide back a little bit. Like, he's not doing that again. I think that's where I'm at with Hyman and the goal column specifically. 54 goals. He had 36 the year before. He's not a perennial 50-goal guy. I really don't see him as that. I think he's more in the low 40s this year, which is a big drop. He had 77 points last year. Only 23 of them were assists, which is crazy.
And
like
47 the year before, for reference.
Like
assists.
You should luck into more assists than that, playing with Connor McDavid and Evan Bouchard and all the talent on the Oilers. So I'm going to go under by just a hair. Just a hair. I think his goals will fall from 54 to like 42, and then he'll get like 8 more assists or 9 more assists, but he'll be at like the 73, 74 point range.
I think this is the hardest one, because I do think 50 goals like isn't totally unrealistic for him, just because like how he scores them, right?
Yeah.
But if we're thinking that Draisaitl's going to score more goals
and Connor's going to score more goals,
like, it just like mathematically makes sense that he'll drop a little bit. I'm with you. I think he is probably more of like a 42, 43 goal guy this season. Assist surely would go up from 23. I'll say he's a 70 point guy this year.
It's a good number though. I don't hate. That's a tough number to read.
Like
he could
2
do it.
years, he's had 83 points and 77. He's going to be right there. Perfectly rated.
I just think his shooting percentage was so high last year. You've seen this movie a million times. It's going to go down. And yes, assists, but I don't know. If I had to pick one under, this would be it.
Next guy's Nuge, I'm assuming. Yep. 81.5. So last 3 years for Nuge, he had 50 points in 63 games. Then the next year, he ballooned up to 104.
Yeah.
Then last year, he dropped back down to 67. His goal total fell by more than 50%, going from 37 to 18. His assist total fell from 69 to 49. The most notable drop came from his power play points, which also fell by more than 50%, going from 53 all the way down to 26. And his power play goals fell from 15 to 4. There's positive regression coming here. His shooting percentage is a career 12. Last year, it was 9.8. Year before, it was 18.4. If he is more dialed in with the shots, and he also shot way less this year than he did last year, like 20-some shots less, I think is the number. It's a hair under for me, but he's up from 67. He'll be high 70s this year, and that's because I think he'll be high 20s in the goals. I think his assists might stay relatively constant. No, I want to take the over here.
Well, I'm going to take the under. Just under. Like, I think this is a good line. I can see why you would want to go over. I mean, he should be a little bit better than what he was. And like we're saying, like connecting on the power play a bit more. Like if Draisaitl can just hit on the power play a bit more, he's probably going to get like 6 more assists just from that, right? Yeah, I'm going to go slightly under. I think high 70s.
Okay.
That's just who he is, though, right? Like,
yeah.
But again,
and that's fine. Like that again, that is a good
fantastic.
season.
See, all of them are really good. And the thing is, too, with Nuge, and this isn't again, this comes into Skinner and Arvidsson, he's probably going to get full time with with McDavid and Hyman, which he did, but sometimes he has to drop back, right?
Do you know when the last time Ryan Nugent-Hopkins scored an overtime winner was?
I feel like that it was a lot. Was it a long time ago? I'm assuming by your answer. It feels fresh in my mind.
Your face is telling me it was a while ago.
I'm going to say, when was his rookie year again? 2012?
11-12.
I'll say 2016.
It's been 1, 2, 3. It's been 6 full seasons since Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has scored an overtime winning goal. His last one came in 2017, 2018, and he only has 4 of them in his career. Here's a bold prediction. Nuge will get an OT winner this year.
Do you know what's kind of funny? The Oilers actually aren't that good in overtime. Their record, even last season, was like very average. They were close to 500 in overtime last year.
Okay.
I mean, I love watching them, don't get me wrong. But like the way teams just play them now is just like, let's just keep the puck until Drysdale McDavid go off. You know?
Yeah.
Nuge is going over. Final one.
Boosh. Over.
Oh,
Over.
I think
he's going to score like 35 goals this year.
35 goals.
Yeah, I'm so high on
Oh,
I'm so high on
What
Boosh
thing
this
is
year.
that? Let's go.
It's no cat food bet. I honestly think he's going to hit another level this year. And I know people are going to be like, that's dumb as shit, whatever. 35 is high. He'll score 30. I think he'll score 30. Give me 30. Give me 30. 35 was high. I misspoke. No one, don't tell the press I said 35.
We're media.
Don't tell the press I said 35. He had 18 last year. Yeah, he'll get to 30 this year. There's a bold prediction for you. Boosh gets to 30.
Scalding hot take.
What was
the
the highest was 23. Yeah, okay, he's 30. I said 30, not 35. It's 30.
Who was the last defenseman to score 30 goals?
I don't even give a shit. It's going to be Boosh next year, though. 30 goals for Boosh.
Sheldon Surya.
I think he was.
Oh my God. I'm still going back trying to find a 30 goal defenseman.
I think 90 points is a good total.
Oh my God. It's been so long since someone did it. Mike Green, 0809.
Holy moly.
Boosh is doing it.
35 goals.
30. I said 30. Don't gaslight me. I said 30.
Right when you came out of your mouth,
I cannot
"Holy
believe
cow."
that you said my LA Kings making the playoffs was a 3%, and you
30.
dropped that Boosh bomb on us.
30.
Ooh.
He's going to have 90 points, 30 goals, 60
I'm going to
assists.
say he gets 22 goals and like 70
That'd be a dog shit season.
90 points.
Okay. Good chat. And Davin, and he'll be -1. Yeah, Tyler said 30, give or take 5. Liam, clean your ears. There you go. The Oilers last season, goals 4 in overtime. They ranked tied for 3rd in the league with 8. Goals against in overtime, they only gave up 5, which would be middle of the pack 14th. So it's interesting.
Tomorrow on pregame, I got hot takes. Pat's got hot takes. Brett's giving me hot takes. And I want the chat to give me some hot takes. I can put them in writing.
Pre and post game coming up back tomorrow.
Otherwise,
7 o'clock
7
start.
p.m. 7 p.m.
7
why
o'clock
don't
start.
you do that thing where you go on NHL.com and find out like per season? Like I want to know how many 30 goal scoring defensemen have been in NHL history.
Oh, I can get that for you in 2
thank
seconds. In NHL history, let's do since 79-80.
Okay, that seems like a good range. Why that year?
I
Just
just
when hockey
when the
was good.
Oilers started.
Oilers.
Oh yeah,
And it got good.
There's been 9.
awesome. Well, there's
About to be 10.
Who are they?
Who are the 9? Yeah.
Paul Coffey, Mike Green, Phil Housley, Ray Bork, Kevin Hatcher, Paul Coffey, Doug Wilson, Paul Coffey, Paul Coffey.
One of
Well-
those names is not like the other, and his name's Mike Green. And also,
And that's the only one that happened before after the 90s. Oh no, Kevin Hatcher did it in 92.
But hey,
Man.
Paul Coffey on the bench. You've heard it. I heard Travis Dermott say it as well. That with Coffey there, he keeps telling him constantly, get up in the rush, play offensive. And
He's
we know
scoring
Boosh.
so much this year. So much.
I cannot believe Mike Green had 31 goals. Do you know what's funny? That wasn't even his best season ever.
Mike Green?
Mike Green, he only played 68 games that season.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Damn. We talked about Mike Green more on this show than we did about his Oilers career. He had more
Correct.
goals than Nicholas Backstrom that season.
Well,
So I kind of feel like you're slandering his name.
Okay, we
He's
got to
really
wrap.
good.
We got to wrap up the show with the Bet365 other sports report. Shout out to our friends at Bet365, largest sports betting platform globally. Download the app. Use the promo code OilyBonus to get in on a huge range of markets. Other sports report: our Cleveland Guardians lost last night. Series is tied at 1, so we're not panicking yet. Mets Phillies 1-1, that goes tonight. Dodgers Padres 1-1 goes tonight as well. So it's the 2 NLDS games happening this evening. That Dodgers Padres series is getting spicy.
Yeah, I heard.
Did you do your Padres bet for team to win the World Series?
No,
for the
I didn't
first
end up
time?
doing it. I should have. I like the Padres.
He looked like a wagon.
I hate the Dodgers so much. Also, apparently, there's video of Manny Machado throwing a ball at Dave Roberts, and it is the funniest thing ever because he basically rolls it at the Dodgers dugout. Like it is. Just he like almost underhands it.
What a loser! Not Machado. Dave Roberts.
Dave Roberts is a dweeb. Okay. Anyways, go Padres, go Guardians. That's our MLB talk. Football talk. Jets fired Robert Salah.
Yeah, what a. So here's my take on it. I don't think the Jets are a very good team by any means, but you literally kept Robert Saleh for the whole season because you didn't have Aaron Rodgers. You get 5 games into the season. Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball that well anymore.
Can't move.
And now they're firing him Robert Saleh, and the defense actually keeping him in games. It doesn't make any sense.
Like the offense stuff,
it's brutal.
The defense side of the ball.
Like, and shocker, offensive coordinator Noah Hackett, is that his name?
Nathaniel Hackett.
Noah Hackett played for the Old Grizzlies.
Shout out.
Shout out Old Grizzlies. And like he was the worst head coach, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I was good with Rodgers. Now I'm a good offensive coordinator. It's like they don't use Breece Hall. Garrett Wilson literally catches like 5-yard drop passes every time. It's the worst offense in the league. Their defense is actually pretty good. I cannot believe they fired him. I can because they're the Jets and they're dumb as all heck.
The Bills are going to win the division with 9 wins this year.
The Jets should be able to achieve that.
Yep.
And they just fired. Then they hired the defensive coordinator to be the intern.
Right.
So dumb.
The Bills are surrounded by incompetence, and some of it's their own.
Yeah. Do you actually want? I can't remember the odds off the top of my head, but the NFC East right now. San Francisco 49ers, who will be good, don't get me wrong. I hope so. I just made a big trade in my fantasy league. A -120 to win that division. But what's not being incorporated? I know the Rams defense sucks, but Kupp and Puka Nacua are both going to come back. Should that not be enough for them? They're like the 3rd best odds in that division.
I have a ticket. I haven't won the division. I'm going to call. Hello?
What the heck?
I'm not busy. I can talk.
Yeah, I got a second.
Could be anyone. Oh.
It's Bell Canada. Bro, I'm doing a live show. I got to go.
Say hi to everyone.
Sorry, I thought it was maybe a car dealership calling me back. I was like, I got to take this.
So that's a good one. I'm going to look into those NHL futures. Let me know in the chat right now if there's an NHL future that you really, really like. You're like, I think this is good. I think Fantilli's my guy.
Okay.
I think I might go Fantilli.
Dylan Gunther.
Fantilli and Bedard to get 40+. Let's see. But I thought it was very interesting what Andy said when he's like, I like to bet on people's failures. Oh, yeah.
It does make sense because like the over-unders are often baked into like they're going to play all 82 games. That really happens.
Totally.
I'm doing, this is my last thing and then we're wrapping up the show, to win their divisions. Oilers.
Still even money on Bet365.
Yep. Devils. Risky, but they got the goaltending now. Stars.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest lock.
And Bruins.
So who are the odds-on favorites? Is it the Leafs?
Panthers.
Oh, no.
How juiced is that?
That in a 4-legger on Bet365, 88 to 1. $10 turns into almost $900.
You can parlay those?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Bet365, brother.
I wish you could parlay the props, like the season-long props. Damn.
It's good.
So Boston's 3rd best odds. What are they individually?
Plus 450.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I think that Sam Reinhart one is a crazy one. Plus 700. I understand it. I totally
the Bruins
do.
are 4th. Wow.
So it's the Leafs, I'm guessing.
Panthers, Leafs, Lightning, Bruins.
Yeah, I would have the Lightning higher. Oh, hey, it's a good division.
Frank has the Bolts missing the playoffs. We'll talk to him tomorrow.
Frank.
Tomorrow, we're live at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's our first Sherwood Ford Giant game day of the year. The season begins tomorrow, and it's exciting. Jay makes his return. He did not appear once all summer.
Oh, we got to bring that game day betting challenge.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We did talk to Jay about coming on the show a couple of times.
And he said, stop talking to me.
Yeah.
And then he went back into his office. It was
fired in January, he said.
Yeah. Okay. Shout out to our friends, Andy MacNeil and Hart from Puckpedia. They will both be on again before the new year.
Different kind of guest lineup today. I quite liked it.
Mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, though, Frank Cervoli, the big man's back in the mix. So we're going to do that and all of the usual game day fun as we get going for the 2024-25 season. All right. This is pretty much all I care about. The final Facebook comment of the day goes to Bubba. Final season CFL, October 18th. WWE wrestler Roman Reigns, Edmonton Elk versus Dwayne Johnson. I don't know what any of this means, but it's hilarious. I love our Facebook.
It's good.
Oh, we got to plug the beer. Oh, whoa.
There we go. I knew you were rushing.
We think we picked a date to do our watch along at Odd Company. We're waiting for confirmation, but you can tentatively put it in your calendars. Nation Beer's coming. It's canned. Take a look. That's real life. That's not Photoshop. That's real life.
I thought this was Oilersnation Everyday.
They look cool.
Those
We're
look
partnering
so
up with
good.
Odd Company. Nation Beer is back. It is coming to a store near you. Everyday lager, Nation Beer. This is Oilers Nation every day. We're going to go to Odd Company, the location in Ritchie, and we're going to do a watch the game with us, ON every day. We're going to do pre and post game from there, and we're thinking the game on Sunday against Detroit. I think it's the 27th.
Yep.
So
Yes.
it's a 4 p.m. puck drop. So like leave your kids, leave your family for the day, come hang out with us, watch the game, crush a couple of beverages, a couple of Nation beers. We're going to do maybe like a giveaway as well in there, but we're thinking on the 27th.
Yes, the day McDavid gets his 1,000th NHL point.
And then I will buy 1,000 beers.
If Evan Bouchard scores 35
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Ryan Smith knows I'd pour that down my gullet. Hell yeah, brother.
All right.
Okay, that's a wrap on today's.
One more. You gotta do some others here. You gotta do Nation Vacation and Greta. I know there's a lot.
We have limited spots on the Nation Vacation to Denver. We opened up a few more. They're starting to move. This is your last chance to get in on the Nation Vacation, November 29th until December 3rd. Shout out to DNVR. You get your flights to and from, hotel 4 nights downtown Denver, watch party Friday night for Edmonton, Utah, tickets to the game, Edmonton, Colorado, Edmonton Attack twice side. Sunday, we're going to go find a spot. We're going to bet on football. We're going to crush some beverages as a crew. It's going to be a lot of fun. Monday, exclusive tailgate party, food and booze included. Tickets to the Monday nighter between Cleveland and Denver. Then you fly home on Tuesday. Like there are maybe, I think, 6 spots left. So if you're going to get in, do it. If you don't get in, you can win your way in by visiting in any Oodle Noodle location in Edmonton and buying some delicious noodles. Boom, boom.
To the last one.
Final plug, Liam.
Oilers Nation citizens, listen up. The season is here. And what better way to kick it off with, with Oilers Nation Greta? It's all going down this Thursday, next Thursday, October 17th, presented by our friends at Alberta Blue Cross. Doors open at 4 p.m. And you know the drill. Tickets are going fast, so hit them up. When you get your Nation vacations, grab this one too. It's just as cheap before they're gone. Got all the prizes.
You don't want to get FOMO.
Yeah,
You don't
no.
go, you
Prizes,
get FOMO.
trivia, live shows, and more to keep the energy buzzing all night. Plus, this year we're supporting free play for kids, helping kids in our community access sports, which is very nice. Don't miss out on the biggest kickoff party of the year. Be there, hear all about it all season long. Visit nationgear.ca to reserve your spot.
Did they talk about the Golden Knights putting Raphael on waivers? Also, Carter Hutton's back with starting goalies. Go to the Daily Faceoff Instagram and comment on it. Okay. That was a lot.
We're good now.
I'm going to get leftover pizza. I'm going to warm up my leftover pizza before our meeting.
I have Thai food.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Tell a friend about it. And tomorrow, game day, oil up.
Thank you for watching Oilers Nation Every Day. Hit the subscribe button to never miss a show. And for more, visit OilersNation.com.